Download now.
Hello and welcome to News9 Mediaverse. My name is Brijesh Pandey. And what a cracker of a winter session of Parliament it has been. You know, from a high-profile security breach to the ongoing Parliament slugfest, which has perhaps seen an unprecedented 141 opposition MPs suspended from both houses. Another very important meeting took place. The I.N.D.I.A Bloc, which met today, sprung a surprise by suggesting the name of Mallikarjun Kharge, a Dalit, as their prime ministerial candidate. According to sources within the I.N.D.I.A blocs, Mamata Banerjee made this suggestion, and this was also seconded by Arvind Kejriwal and couple of other key players of the I.N.D.I.A bloc. Though Mallikarjun Kharge downplayed it by saying that the focus should first be on winning polls, many believe that this move can act as a catalyst to bolster their chances in 2024 election. Can this also blunt the Prime Minister and BJP's attack on Rahul Gandhi and the Gandhi dynasty, which we always see under attack by both the BJP as well as Prime Minister Narendra Modi? Another important piece of news came, which now makes a lot more sense when it was said that sources within the Congress party are suggesting that Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi and Mallikarjun Kharge might contest election from Uttar Pradesh. So it's been an action-packed day, full of political drama, big breaking news. But first, go in and listen in to what Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge has to say after a 3-hour marathon meeting. And then I'll go to my guest and my colleague Ghulam Jilani, who joins me outside the venue where this meeting of I.N.D.I.A bloc took place. First, listen in to Mallikarjun Kharge.
हमने पहले सभी लोग जीत के आना है, जीत के लिए क्या करना उसके बारे में हम सोचे। कौन प्राइम मिनिस्टर बनना ये बाद में की बात है। एमपीज अगर नहीं है तो प्राइम मिनिस्टर की बात करके क्या फायदा है। तो इसीलिए हम पहले अपनी संख्या बढ़ाने के लिए एक होकर सभी लोग लड़ के हम मेजॉरिटी लाने की कोशिश करेंगे। और बीजेपी आज जो और मोदी जी बहुत इतना 1-2-3 इलेक्शन होने के बाद उनको तो इतना घमंड आया कि अब देश में मेरे सिवाय कोई नहीं बचेगा या दुनिया में भी मैं एक ही लीडर हूँ प्रचार करते हैं। तो हम पहले जीतने की कोशिश करेंगे और एक होकर जीतेंगे। पहले हमारे को चिंता है जीतने की और आप लोग सभी उस दिशा में सोचिए, नहीं कि उन्होंने ये बोला हमने ये बोला, ये तो हमारी इंटरनल बात है, उसमें कोई ये नहीं है। जो इंडिया गठबंधन का एक मुद्दा है कि सभी लोग मिलकर काम करेंगे और सीट शेयरिंग का भी हम मिल के पहले जिस स्टेट में हमारे लोग हैं पहले वो लोग वहाँ पर एक दूसरे से समझौता करेंगे। अगर कहीं दिक्कत है या कहीं अभी नहीं बन सकता उसके लिए फिर यहाँ पर हमारे जो इंडिया गठबंधन के नेता लोग हैं उसको डिसाइड करेंगे। और बहुत से जगह जो हर एक पार्टी एक जो है वो ठीक ढंग से है। अब चाहे वो तमिलनाडु में हो, केरला में हो, कर्नाटक में हो या तेलंगाना में हो, बिहार में हो, अब जो मुद्दा है इसका यूपी में वो भी सुलझ जाएगा और बाकी का दिल्ली या पंजाब का है वो समस्या को भी किस ढंग से सुलझाना ये भी बात बाद में तय हो जाएगी। तो ये हमने तय करके ये मीटिंग करा। मुझे खुशी है कि इस मीटिंग के 28 पार्टी के नेता लोग और सभी दिग्गज यहाँ जो बैठे हैं वो सभी ने कोऑपरेट किया और कोऑपरेट करके इस मीटिंग को यशस्वी बनाया कि होम मिनिस्टर या प्राइम मिनिस्टर सदन में आइए, जो घटनाएं घटी है उसके बारे में सदन को अवगत कराइए, मालूमात कराइए लोकसभा को और राज्यसभा को। लेकिन उन्होंने नहीं माना। मेरे को समझ में नहीं आता, सदन इधर चल रहा है, ये लोग अहमदाबाद में बिल्डिंग इनॉग्रेशन जाते हैं, सदन इधर चल रहा है, मोदी जी अपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूंसी में जाके घूमते हैं। ये क्या है? ऐसा कभी नहीं हुआ। सदन यहां देश में रह के और सभी तरफ अपने भाषण देने लगे, लेकिन पार्लियामेंट में क्यों नहीं आए? लोकसभा और राज्यसभा में क्यों नहीं आए? तो ये जो उनकी मंशा है कि डेमोक्रेसी को खत्म करना, अगर नहीं गए तो क्या होने वाला को कौन पूछने वाला है? और यहां तक कि 151 लोगों को सस्पेंड करके बाहर जो निकाले, ये पहला इंसिडेंट है कि देश में इतने लोगों को आज तक किसी ने सस्पेंड नहीं किया था। ये सरकार ने प्रोत्साहन देकर सस्पेंड करने के लिए लगाए। ये बड़ी बुरी बात है और इसके लिए हम लड़ेंगे, मैदान में जाएंगे। और जो आज प्राइम मिनिस्टर और होम मिनिस्टर समझ रहे हैं कि हमारे सिवाय हिंदुस्तान में और कोई भी नहीं, हम ही हुकूमत करने के लायक है, ये उनका समझ है। इस समझ को खत्म करने के लिए हम सब एक हुए हैं। एक होकर ये आज बहुत निर्णय लिए हैं। एक तो 151 लोगों के बारे में, और दूसरा जो है सब मिलके प्रोटेस्ट करना। और ऑल इंडिया प्रोटेस्ट 22 दिसंबर को ये जितने भी सस्पेंशन हो गए उनके बारे में ये चलेगा।
This was Mallikarjun Kharge, Congress President and potential Prime Ministerial candidate of the I.N.D.I.A Bloc. I'm joined by Shikha Mukherjee, senior journalist, Bhanuchandra Nagarajan, political analyst, and also Gautam Mukherjee, a regular on our show, a senior journalist. Welcome all of you in News9 Live. Shikha ji, first I'll come to you. Ma'am, don't you think that today two very important announcement happened? The question which has been perennially asked by BJP supporters, BJP party members is Modi versus who? I think it kind of answers Modi versus who. And second, the who, which is Mallikarjun Kharge, as sources are saying, Mamata Banerjee and Arvind Kejriwal and a couple of other parties are also backing him. He also happens to be a Dalit. Do you see this name settling these two questions, and how politically significant is the fact that the I.N.D.I.A Bloc has chosen a Dalit as its prime ministerial candidate?
Well, I think it's interesting because last week or the week before, I can't remember, within the last 10 days, I seem to remember having said on a television program, not yours though, that Mallikarjun Kharge would be an obvious choice as a potential prime ministerial face. The reason, as you very rightly point out, is he's a Dalit. That's a very important element in India's political geography, as it were. And the second thing is that the India alliance needs a leader, a face, a convener to begin with. Mallikarjun Kharge, Prime Minister or otherwise, it needs a convener who is acceptable and who has political wisdom, political sense, which Mallikarjun Kharge seems to be having. And therefore, it is an obvious choice that Mallikarjun Kharge should be the convener to begin with, and therefore perhaps a potential prime ministerial face. I see nothing actually surprising in that choice, if I may say so.
Nothing in surprising, if you say so. Gautam, one of the key, I would say, criticism, or one of the key point which was against the India bloc was that, it's a conglomerations of parties which don't see eye to eye on almost every subject. And, the biggest challenge was that they won't get a prime ministerial face, or a prime ministerial candidate will be backed by everyone. How do you view announcement of Mallikarjun Kharge, though it is not final as yet, but Mallikarjun Kharge as the prime ministerial candidate, and does it bolster the caste calculation which the BJP or the Congress, I beg your pardon, or an India alliance is factoring in, the fact that he happens to be a Dalit as well? Gautam?
Well, he's already president of the Congress, and the Congress is going to, one expects, have the largest number of votes or largest number of MPs because it does rule in some states. Whereas most of the others in the bloc are either not in power or they control one state. It also heads off at the pass at an early date other aspirants, particularly Nitish Kumar, Rahul Gandhi, because Rahul Gandhi is generally not acceptable, and Nitish Kumar is a little temperamental and he moves back and forth on his views. Kharge is ideal. Kharge has been energized by this. As you can see, he's made a rather lengthy speech, which he normally doesn't. And what he's saying is sensible. The scent of power in his 80s is enough for him to become quite cogent. And last but not least, the Dalit factor, such as it is, because you don't know exactly what a grip the Congress party has on Dalits, what the India bloc has on Dalits, because it's a conglomeration of vote banks, including Muslims, very significantly, Dalits perhaps. They've been trying to stir the caste pot. So, but in any case, as before in these coalitions, choosing a person who is as such non-controversial and broadly acceptable and has years and years in politics is what has always gone down. And naming him nice and early, Mamata Banerjee did this, is, I think, a good move.
It's a good move, says Gautam Mukherjee. Bhanu, if you look at the announcement, there's very interesting, in source-based info which came in, which suggested that Mallikarjun Kharge might be fielded from Uttar Pradesh. And, you see the way the Dalit bloc is moving and the kind of loosening grip of Bahujan Samaj Party, which is out of power for several years, and also the fact that what we saw in Telangana, the Muslim voters shifting towards Congress party. Do you see it as a tactical move which will help BJP in the largest state, which sends 80 member of parliaments, and right now the BJP seems to have a vice-like grip on the state as far as number of member of parliament it sends. Do you think this will help the Congress party and also the India bloc?
Brijesh, first of all, I would like to humbly disagree with my fellow panelists there. I think the choice of Kharge was more driven by the fact that nobody wanted to be the face of a loss. I think that is the reason why even Mamata Didi had a 180-degree turn just a week before the election. She was saying that there needs to be a consensus, etc., etc. So she made a turn, which means that the 5 state elections, or especially the results from the 3 states, has sort of shaken the India ranks. So there are a couple of issues with this. One is, if you look at the results of the three states, I will answer the question on UP concurrently. The Dalits and the tribals have voted overwhelmingly for BJP, perhaps like more than 60% in all the 60% of the seats in all the three states. So I think we do not know whether having a Dalit face as a prime minister will sort of work in this milieu. Second is, Congress and the India Alliance has been talking about the OBCs a lot. The caste census, etc., etc. So they would perhaps want to they will, I think, reconsider the choice if they actually go by the caste calculations. Because Kharge has not announced, the final candidacy has not been announced, and Kharge also said that that's to be decided later. So I think it doesn't give a good vibe. I think people do not want to be a face of the loss. And coming to your question on Uttar Pradesh, I think the results of the three state elections and the moves of BSP, which is slowly moving towards BJP, and the expansion of the Labharthis to the SCs means that BJP's vice-like grip on UP has only tightened. So we have to see how it works out, and also the move with Yadavs, with appointing Mohan Yadav in Madhya Pradesh has also tightened the grip on the Yadav vote. Maybe that would force Samajwadi Party to sort of be more active in forming the India Alliance, and maybe that might prompt them to contest. But I think there are too many steps. We have to wait and see what happens.
Okay. Manasvi has also joined in. Manasvi, how do you view this move by the India Bloc? Your first comments on that?
I think it's a very positive move for the India Bloc. Why do I say that? Would be that it's Kharge being a very experienced leader, Kharge ji, and then he comes from a marginalized Dalit community. That somehow is a great move for the Congress and for the India Bloc. And further, he's coming from Karnataka, which is a southernmost states of India. So that's going to be a consolidation move. It's ek tir se anek nishane jaisi cheese which is going to happen with Congress. The move is good. How far it's going to go, how far it's going to have that national integration of everyone, like one of the speakers said, that how it's going to go. It's a good move, but how the Yadavs are going to take up in the UP Bihar region would be also interesting to know. Having said that, with this is a very obvious choice also, and it's a great choice for Congress because it is somehow going to create an integration for Congress internally, and Southern Bloc and the southern part of the country is somehow going to be united because he would not be seen as a Dalit leader in the southern part of our country, but an Indian from the south aiming to become the chief minister, and the united factor of the southern states could come up. Like in Gujarat and in Hindi belt when Narendra Modi ji campaigns, in Gujarat specifically, it's the Gujarati Asmita which comes up. Now in the southern region, because what is this? The south and the north belt divide somehow is like the southern states are going to be united when it comes to a southern prime minister. So that consolidating factor would help the Congress to consolidate its vote banks and also the of Lok Sabha. So that's going to be very interesting. The only difficult part would be convincing and creating a harmony between the Akhilesh Yadavs and the Kharges of the world. That is something which is going to be very interesting in the India Bloc. If that is done, I think this bloc with Kharge ji as the prime ministerial candidate could give a good fight to Prime Minister Narendra Modi if they consolidate the entire southern and create a harmony in the northern belt.
Okay. Shikha, I tend to agree with what Bhanu was saying because, the fact of the matter is also that, that the Congress is trying the caste calculation, and, many felt that the results of the 3 assembly election, though it doesn't matter in 2024 general election, would be completely different from the results which came out, which saw BJP literally trouncing Congress in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh and, winning Rajasthan, which was on the expected line. Do you seriously see that this kind of tokenism, by having a Dalit as the chief minister, as a prime ministerial candidate of the India Bloc, is going to solve their problems as far as the caste outreach is concerned? And B,
are you talking about the Congress?
I'm talking about the Congress as well as the India Bloc, ma'am. Do you think, is it going to solve the problem of India Bloc also? And also the fact that, the BJP has already made those Labharthi outreach, which the Congress is finding very hard to break in. Or Congress or other opposition parties as well.
Well, let me put it to you like this. Mallikarjun Kharge is uh, someone who can take people along, as has become very clear since the first meeting in Patna, the June 23 meeting in Patna of the India Bloc. He is able to create cohesion within the bloc, and today, as you can see, there are 28, 29 parties which are now part of this India alliance. Therefore, one has to give Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge the credit of being a natural convener of the India bloc. Whether he becomes prime minister or not, whether he eventually becomes prime minister or not, is a question that will be decided at a later point in time. But having a face for leading the campaign is something that is perhaps essential at this point, because one of the narratives that has emerged over the years is that any alliance, anti-BJP alliance, will fall apart because there is no face, there is no cohesion, there is no one to hold it together, and nobody dares to stand up to Mr. Modi's magic. Now, that is a big, big challenge for Mr. Kharge. And if he is at this point in time saying that the prime minister issue can be decided later, he is not denying that the proposal was A, made, and B, that he is most likely to be the convener of the India alliance. That makes him a challenger in any case to Mr. Modi and the BJP's alliance. And I think that is an interesting step, because whether it's the Dalit factor which will work, or whether it's the consolidation of these southern states that will work, the fact is that Mr. Kharge has a kind of salt of the earth kind of appeal, which makes him more than just a Dalit leader. It makes him a man of the masses, which is a problem which several of the other leaders have had, which is that they are very elite in their
Okay.
in how they are. Let
Okay.
me put it to you. In how they are. I mean, Mamata Banerjee is obviously a mass leader. She's a leader of the masses, and there's no
Okay.
questioning that. Mr. Kharge actually comes across as a man of the masses. I think that is
Okay.
also a particular plus when it comes to the idea of Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge being the face of the India
Okay.
alliance. Whether it is as prime minister or not is something that will have to happen after, as
Okay.
Mr. Mallikarjun
Okay.
Kharge very sensibly points out, after they win the election.
Okay.
But as a face, it is an interesting proposition. It
Okay.
is a complicated proposition. And
Gautam, yes, ma'am.
it does add heft to the
Okay.
India story.
Okay. Gautam, there's also one angle to it, which is the southern angle. The BJP, the Congress won election in Karnataka. They also won an improbable election in the state of Telangana. There also talks of how they might make inroad into Andhra Pradesh. Do you see Kharge's name cropping up as the future chief prime minister of India Bloc, or prime ministerial face of India Bloc, might revive Congress fortune, if not in north, then definitely in south, where the states where it has drawn almost zero or next to nothing? Do you think it can bolster Congress's chance in southern part of India?
Well, as it stands, BJP has more MPs from the south than anyone
Yes.
of the other parties. And I think they have reformed their setup in Karnataka. And as a consequence, most of the polls are saying that they will get most of the seats in Karnataka as far as the Lok Sabha elections go. Congress has certainly broken through in Telangana in a very worthwhile manner. And that is bye-bye KCR and his excesses, a sort of a dampening of AIMIM as well. Andhra, I don't know. I think they're trying just like the rest, but it will be a regional party, probably ready once again when it comes to state elections. What will happen in the national elections again will mostly veer towards BJP. Now, is Kharge going to change this equation? I don't think so. I don't think so. He's a Dalit, all right, but the caste equations in Karnataka do not really operate on those bases. You've got Vokaligas and Lingayats. In Telangana, again, you've got various groups that don't necessarily tally with a Dalit being a chief catalyst. Andhra, likewise. As far as Tamil Nadu goes, I think when it comes to national elections, they'll vote BJP. Otherwise, it's mainly DMK these days because AIDMK has been weakened with the departure of Jayalalitha. So no, I think his biggest effectiveness is that he will be he's an elder statesman, and these elderly people are not threatening or rude or any of that sort for this large Gathbandhan to operate. He is not a person that others resent. Whether he's a galvanizer beyond that, in terms of actual votes, remains to be seen.
Okay, that's a very interesting, articulation, Gautam. Let's slip into a small break, and then when on the other side, we'll discuss the unprecedented expulsion of 141 opposition MPs. Stay tuned.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है Money9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
It was my 14th birthday.
On birthday, daughter waits
home missing father.
He was carrying a cake for his daughter.
49-year-old Birmingham-based
Indian diplomat vanishes.
He was grabbed and bundled into a car by 4 assailants.
KLA claims responsibility demands Kashmiri separatists.
Maqbool Bhatt's release.
Goli maro, aur feck do. And within 3 days, they shot him dead.
Abducted diplomat.
Found murdered in Leicestershire.
I said, who ordered to kill him? To me, he said, yes, I ordered it.
And he never came home.
Stop searching, start streaming. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And you're watching me on First Person on News9 Plus.
This
This and more streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Today, she is the only smiling leader in Rajasthan. All eyes will be on her moves if the BJP returns to power.
Vasundhara Raje Scindia defied all the odds to become the first woman chief minister of Rajasthan.
She has the uncanny ability of striking rapport with all sections. That's why she is very popular in her constituency, not only in her constituency but in entire Rajasthan.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back. The opposition meeting happened on the day when 49 more MPs got suspended, taking the total number of suspended MPs in this session to 141. The suspension of 141 MPs has created a sort of new record in the history of parliaments. The MPs have been suspended for disrupting proceedings in both houses of the parliament. The opposition has termed it as a mockery of democracy and has slammed the government of violating democratic norms and bulldozing important legislations without any debate. The government, on the other hand, has blamed the opposition for disrespecting the speaker and the parliament by reckless behavior. This unprecedented action raises pertinent questions. Is democracy in India being weakened, or is the opposition engaging in dramatic theatrics? This is the highest ever tally. Before that, in 1989, 68 plus member of parliaments were suspended. When Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister, they were suspended for 3 days, though the next day they apologized and their suspension was taken back. Let's listen into several MPs who have faced the ire of the chair and were suspended, and then we'll start our discussion.
Mechanically, a list was read out like an attendance register, and it was said that all of us are suspended. All we've been asking is for a statement from the Home Minister, and our demand has been changed. But to mechanically suspend all of us, I guess that's the aim of the government, is to have an opposition-less parliament.
आज लगभग 40 से ज़्यादा MP सस्पेंड हुए हैं और कल भी लगभग राज्यसभा और लोकसभा को मिला के 80 से ज़्यादा MP सस्पेंड हुए हैं. ये बहुत ही दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है एक डेमोक्रेसी सेटअप के लिए. जो वातावरण अब हम देख रहे हैं, जहां हम अपनी बात नहीं रख पा रहे हैं संसद में, तो मैं समझती हूँ कि यह टोटल फेलियर ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट है. अगर गवर्नमेंट ने इतने सारे एमपीज को सस्पेंड किया, इट इज अल्टीमेटली द फेलियर ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट. वी जस्ट वांटेड कि होम मिनिस्टर साहब आए और जो 13 दिसंबर को जो घटना हुई है उस पर बात करें और सांसदों की बात सुने. दैट वाज द ओनली इशू. एंड वी आर ऑल्सो वांटिंग कि जो 13 हमारे एमपी सस्पेंड हुए हैं तो उनको रिवोक किया जाए उनका सस्पेंशन. दिस वाज ऑल द इशू.
That's right. So they've suspended another 42 people today. It's clear they want an opposition mukt Lok Sabha, and presumably they'll do something similar in the Rajya Sabha. I think at this point we have to really start, unfortunately, writing the obituaries for parliamentary democracy in India. The basic principle of parliamentary accountability has been violated by the Home Minister not coming to the House to talk about what he's been telling the media outside, and secondly to initiate a discussion, which would have been the right thing to do, neither of which has happened. Then when opposition protested that, demanding it, they were suspended. So today, in solidarity with my colleagues, I too joined the protest, and everybody literally who was present today has been suspended for the rest of the session, which means that they want to pass their bills without any discussion. I think it's a betrayal of parliamentary democracy. It's a betrayal of what parliament is all about. It's a betrayal of the basic standards, principles and conventions by which this house should be functioning. When we speak of parliamentary decorum, and we talk in terms of what the right things are to be done in parliament, there's also a responsibility on the part of the government and the establishment of this country to actually let things work properly, to encourage the opposition to participate. When our side was in power, we took very seriously the role of the parliamentary affairs side to ensure that the opposition is brought along. Instead, today what we have is a completely one-sided and unfair process.
मुझे ये बताइए, पुलिस किसके हाथ में है? वो सारी
होम मिनिस्ट्री के नीचे है। तो क्या हो जाता अगर वो 5 मिनट आते और कहते जनाब ये हो गया है, हम इस पर कार्रवाई कर रहे हैं, और क्या कह रहे हैं?
In a single word, I can say that it is nothing but an anarchy being played inside the parliament. Anarchy being played inside the parliament. They don't have even an iota of faith upon the parliamentary system in our country. So that is why it is nothing but an anarchy inside the parliament.
Bhanu, I would like to come to you first. How do you view these suspension? I mean, this is unprecedented. You know, we have been covering parliament for such a long time. I've never seen something which is like, which is happening like this, you know. An action-packed, I would say, winter session of parliament. We saw 2 youths jumping inside the parliament, which was a massive security breach. And then the opposition members being suspended in droves, like, you know, 141 member of parliament suspended. How do you see this? Is the government trying to bulldoze? Is the government being overconfident post the 3, assembly victories? Or you know, with 2024 general elections around the corner, the government just doesn't simply care?
So first of all, this suspension is only for this session, which is the next few days. So I think we have to keep that in mind. I think both the government and opposition are playing a game of chicken. The opposition is like bringing placards and like rushing to the well and doing all that and forcing the government's hand. And the government is saying like we will follow.
But Bhanu, I'm sorry, I'm interjecting you. But you know, getting the placards in the well of the house is not forcing the hand of the government. You know, we have seen this hundreds of times being done by the BJP. You know, if you remember Arun Jaitley ji, his famous words, or Sushma Swaraj or Rajnath Singh, how is that forcing government's hand?
So it is. I don't think placards are allowed, Brijesh. Correct me if I'm wrong. But the thing is, like, basically the contention of both the speakers of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha is that the house is not being allowed to function. Anyway, so that is the claim of the government. So I'm actually going by that. But nevertheless, I think the opposition has now have something to talk about and outrage about, as we saw from the quotes of these various parliamentarians. Now that they have lost the 3 elections, they have now have an emotional issue that they could actually place before the people. That's how I see it. But I think this is a temporary thing just for another 3 days. I don't think this is going to happen in the next session, the budget session of the parliament.
Do you see this as both the government and the opposition realizing that this is the last session, 2024 elections round the corner? You know, let's try to milk it maximum to each other's advantage. You know, the government displaying a very, hard stance saying that, you know, we'll brew no nonsense, the parliament has to function according to this. And the opposition crying martyr after being suspended, Sika.
I don't know who's the martyr in this case. No. The Prime Minister today apparently said that the objective of the opposition is to try and oust the government from office, probably by demonstrating inside and outside Parliament. I'm not very sure exactly how he came to that conclusion. But having said that, look at what happened. There was an incident, and certainly the Prime Minister as well as the Home Minister is accountable to the House on the one hand, and through the House to the people of India to explain what happened, how the investigations are proceeding, and how the safety of a national institution is being protected, and why there was a breach. Failing to do so is also kind of not being accountable to the people. I think that is a very sad day in India's democratic parliamentary history. Apart from the fact that 141 suspensions is ridiculous. I mean, look at the fact that there are about 100 people who are not in Parliament, who are not in the Lok Sabha, just because they have been suspended. It is also a failure of the Speaker in not being able to control the situation. Let us not forget that since he's in the chair, it is his job to get on with it. And the opposition, by definition, is the opposition. It will raise questions. It must raise questions. It is paid to be asking these questions as the opposition. Why is there such a reluctance to be answerable, to be accountable? This is something that baffles me. Is this the end of democracy in India? Who knows? But at this point in time, it seems rather strange that the Prime Minister is giving interviews, the Home Minister is giving interviews, but they don't want to talk about what happened. Why not? What is the great secret in not wanting to talk about this? Yeah, there is a BJP MP who signed the passes allowing these people to come into the house. And if that is what is the sticking point, then the BJP may as well own up to the fact and get on with it.
Okay.
Why is it preventing an opposition from participating in the House? Suspending them? I mean, okay, the opposition, unruly behavior of the opposition, come on. As you quite rightly pointed out, unruly behavior of the opposition has been going on ever since Parliament began.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of having the Lok Sabha, the Sansad TV channel in operation, as Somnath Chatterjee said, was to allow the people to see how Parliament functions.
Okay.
Therefore, if we are seeing what is happening, we might as well get an explanation for what happened.
Okay. Gautam, what is the reluctance? Why can't the Home Minister come, explain the entire situation? If the opposition disrupts, it's on the opposition and not on the government. Why this reluctance? Or is it like, everybody's decided it's election mode?
I think the government has conducted and is conducting investigations into this. It's a very strange set of people. Many of them have links to the opposition parties, including the TMC, the Congress, the South. They have links with bureaucrats, links with politicians, and possibly an overseas link as well. So this needs to be gone into. It's not a snap thing that the Home Minister can come and say, look, this is what happened, this is why it happened. Having said that, that parliamentary security is slack is obvious to everybody. Whatever be the antecedents of the people who have done this.
Gautam, we have discussed that. I'm just saying that I was asking you about the reluctance of the Home Minister to come. I know it's an ongoing investigation, but opposition members are also well within their rights when they say that the government can any day come and then explain the issues which it can be explained. The entire investigation is being reported threadbare by the media channels. So why can't the Home Minister say it in the House? One other interesting thing which happened today was that Trinamool Congress MP Kalyan Banerjee, while the majority of the opposition party members were protesting outside one of the gates, he mimicked Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, and that has created a massive row between the government and the opposition. He also, took a mark at the fact that Rahul Gandhi was not only listening but making the video. Let's listen into what was being mimed by Kalyan Banerjee and what was the response of Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar.
I'm not frightened. My spine is itching. My spine is very stiff. I'm so calm. My spine is so stiff. My spine is so stiff. I'm not frightened. My spine is itching. My spine is very stiff. I'm so calm. My spine is so stiff. My spine is so stiff.
Office of Chairman Rajya Sabha and Office of Speaker is very different. Political parties will have their cross currents, they will have exchanges, but imagine a senior leader of your party videographing another member of another party, mimicry of the chairman, mimicry of speaker. How ridiculous, how shameful, how unacceptable.
इतने बड़े पद पे बैठे आदमी का अपमान कर रहे थे, उनको लगता है कि इस कुर्सी पे बैठने का हमें ही अधिकार है। ये जाट समाज का आदमी कहाँ से आ गया, किसान पुत्र कहाँ से आ गया, इसलिए वो एंजॉय कर रहे थे, इसकी हम निंदा करते हैं।
From breach of security to, insulting the Jat Samaj, I mean, it's never a dull moment when it's Indian Parliament. That's it for today. Now, please watch News 9 Plus special documentary, How Pakistan is Training Women to Act as Intelligence Operatives and Tap Influential Indians. They seek confidential information in lieu of sexual favors. Experts want defense personnel and scientists not to seek love in the virtual realm. They have also asked the government to closely monitor the sale of Indian SIM card. Watch this documentary, especially on News 9.
I recently received a friend request from Mahira Sharma. Now, we seem to have a lot of friends in common on social media, particularly from the military veterans community. But something about her didn't quite add up. So we decided to investigate. Now, honey traps as an espionage tool are nothing new. They've been around for centuries. But Pakistan's ISI, their spy agency, has been perfecting honey traps in the virtual space. Our story takes you inside Pakistan's honey trap machine.
Mahira Sharma, a young, good-looking woman in her 20s. Her Facebook profile said she was a clerk in a nationalized bank in Pune. Our editor's profile picture had an Air Force aircraft. He had several former military officers in his friends list. Mahira Sharma had 62 friends, all of them males and many of them serving and retired military and government officials. We began our investigation. We found 3 more Facebook accounts with the exact same profile picture and name. Another Facebook profile, Gauri Sharma, had the same work profile as Mahira. That confirmed our suspicion that both accounts were fake. We decided to dig further. We first called the bank. They confirmed that no one by this name worked there. We then approached 2 of their followers and asked them whether they personally knew these women. They said they had never met them. It was not clear why they had accepted the friend request.
Our investigation led us to a list of honey trappers trained in Pakistan. Pakistani intelligence operatives run these fake accounts. They have only one target: Indian men in uniform. These women are trained to speak in Indian dialects.
Indian military intelligence officials confirmed to us that Mahira Sharma was one of hundreds of fake profiles created by Pakistan's intelligence agency, the ISI. She was the bait for a honey trap.
Etc. We try to educate our people, but a lot of our journalists and a lot of our public professionals, etc., believe that they are not vulnerable, they have got nothing to hide. But what happens in something is, Mahira Sharma tries to approach me on LinkedIn, and if I find that she is connected to some famous editor whom I know, so my trust factor and the chance of me lowering the guard is very much there. So it is that one person, that one breach will lead to multiple other breaches. The trust factor is, oh, Mahira Sharma is friends with Sandeep Punithan, my friend. Okay, maybe she's, I take the first, and she says, Sandy said, I may not check back because Sandy is a big, busy man. So that's how it starts off.
जहाँ पे भी आपको लगेगा, उनको लगेगा कि there is a person who is susceptible to women, who's making a lot of women friends on the social media. That is where they will make a spoof account and then start luring the person. I have also got in my Twitter account. I'm only on the Twitter handle, and suddenly I have to literally report and block the particular handles. So one, the female will be there in a semi-nude. The beauty is, the AI works so well. How long have you looked at the photo? You just seen it and changed the screen. You've done a gaze. 2-second gaze, 3-second gaze, a minute gaze. Are you repetitively going back to that handle? Your weakness is known.
So the ISI is a professional intelligence agency, and since you said that their nation's motivation is, their reason deter for existing is to seemingly defeat our nation and rest Kashmir, that is what they openly say, and they have created a vast infrastructure to defeat this nation. And being a professional organization, they look at multiple ways to infiltrate our nation, get military information, because we are a militarily superior power. So they run these operation, and the information age, it is but natural they will create Mahira Sharmas and try to infiltrate.
Pradeep Kurulkar was the director of Pune-based Defence Research and Development Organization. The DRDO is India's premier military R&D organization, developing crucial defence equipment, including strategic missiles. In June 2020, Kurulkar received a WhatsApp message from Zara Dasgupta. Zara claimed that she was a software engineer from UK. Then the video chats began. Zara began sending nude photographs and videos to Kurulkar. Soon, she began asking for top secret information on India's defence preparedness. Kurulkar passed data on the BrahMos cruise missile and test details of a yet to be revealed Agni-6 nuclear ballistic missile. The 58-year-old scientist was entrapped.
इस वक्त की बड़ी खबर, डीआरडीओ के डायरेक्टर प्रदीप कुरूलकर गिरफ्तार हो गए हैं। उन पर पाकिस्तान इंटेलिजेंस को इन्फॉर्मेशन देने का आरोप लगा है।
Kurulkar was arrested by Indian police in May 2023. The woman who called herself Zara Dasgupta was operating from Pakistan, not the UK. There was another twist here. Kurulkar was convinced Zara was a real person. She had met him in Pune in December 2020. Police believe this yet to be identified woman was an imposter hired for the honey trap. The Zara Dasgupta Kurulkar was chatting with was a Pakistani intelligence operative based in either Karachi or Lahore. Pakistan's ISI runs an institute in Karachi to train women on how to honey trap Indians working at crucial government positions. Pradeep Kurulkar is their biggest catch till date.
Robin Sage experiment is a experiment done by an American security researcher called Thomas Ryan. Okay, 2009 he created a profile on LinkedIn and took the face from a pornographic website of a young lady and created a fake profile about her in a couple of in other social media. This saying she's a researcher who's worked in the US Navy and she's got 10 years experience, etc., and immediately she started requesting people who had security clearance in the US military as well as the strategic community, and she managed to make a lot of friends over there. So, and he presented it later as a study, a very famous study, saying getting in bed with Robin Sage.
They identify the person who either has information or who has access to the information. It is not necessarily defense personnel only. So it's anywhere and everywhere. If India was making vaccines, you think people won't be interested what exactly they're doing there?
What people don't realize is security is weakest at the top. Security is usually very tight down below, because people down below are, come under a security and a disciplinary regime. But when you go up the chain, no one enforces it to people at the top. That disciplinary regime and the security regime is not enforced at the top. And they usually have a public profile where it is much more easier to approach that person.
What is predominant in this honey trapping cases is that most of the victims, the majority of the victims which have been even arrested by the intelligence agencies in the past 6 to 7 years, more than the honey trap, they have been the victims of a malware which was installed in their phones in disguise of a chatting app or a dating app. And once the mobile phone is compromised, their conversations across the days recorded, their photos are stolen, their documents are stolen. That reveals much more, and that is the most strategic damage a country faces.
If you're in a position, you have to understand that you are a strategic person when it comes to country, and for that you have to have more awareness as compared to anybody else in terms of relying, in terms of sharing information directly, indirectly. And if something like that happens, I think rather than succumbing to their blackmail, because sooner or later you will be caught, best is to not put your country on somebody else's hand, but come out clean on it, and so that things can be solved at the earlier stage.
Pakistani spy agency ISI's sinister plan to target India. Training women to honey trap top civil and military officials. Counter honey trapping ops initiated by India. But gullible victims still caught in the web. Top military intelligence experts break down the web of deception. Colonel Hani Bakshi explains the phenomena of honey trap.
जहाँ पे भी आपको उनको लगेगा कि there is a person who is susceptible to women, who's making a lot of women friends on the social media. That is where they will make a spoof account and then start luring the person.
Colonel Pavitran Rajan decodes the psyche of the victim and the predator.
But when you go up the chain, no one enforces it to people at the top. That disciplinary regime and the security regime is not enforced at the top. And they usually have a public profile where it is much more easier to approach that person.
A News9 special on how modern technology has added teeth to the ancient spying tactic.
Our story takes you inside Pakistan's honey trap machine.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved
10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world's first news OTT. News9 Plus, ahead of the curve. The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being.
Hello and welcome to this brand new edition of Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. We have a packed show for you, but let's begin with our big focus, which is, as always, the Israel-Hamas war. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today spoke to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about the Israel-Hamas war. Prime Minister Modi has said he highlighted India's stand in favor of early restoration of peace in Gaza. This is information he shared earlier this evening on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter. Now, amid what is perceived to be a growing rift between the United States and Israel over civilian casualties in Gaza, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin discussed with Israeli officials routes towards the future for Gaza after Hamas and the protection of civilians in the Strip. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said the military will gradually transition to the next phase of the war and expects displaced Palestinians to return to their homes in northern Gaza before those from the south. Much of the north has been decimated by airstrikes. Austin discussed with his Israeli counterpart how lower intensity combat and ways to reduce harm to officials need to be implemented. But neither Austin nor Gallant gave a timeline for a move to what Austin called more surgical operations. International pressure for a ceasefire has increased on Israel over the nearly 20,000 civilian casualties resulting from a massive bombing campaign and ground war aimed at destroying Hamas, which governs Gaza and fights guerrilla style from a network of urban tunnels. While the White House, or rather the United States, provides Israel with weapons and diplomatic support and has resisted ceasefire calls, it has hardened its stand with Prime Minister Netanyahu's government in the recent past. Last week, US President Joe Biden said Israel was losing international support because of the indiscriminate bombing of Gaza. The Hamas-run health ministry has said at least 13 Palestinians have been killed and 75 others wounded in an Israeli strike on the Jabalia refugee camp in the northern Gaza Strip. Israel is yet to respond to these claims. This comes a day after at least 110 people were reported to have been killed at this refugee camp. At 1.4 square kilometers, the Jabalia refugee camp is the largest of 8 camps in Gaza and has been home to some 116,000 registered refugees. On Sunday, Pope Francis accused Israel's military of terrorism tactics after their reported shooting of 2 Palestinian Christian women who had taken refuge in a Gaza church. Israel's military says it is not true that they had shot the women. Meanwhile, the US Defense Secretary also announced a new US-led security operation in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden following attacks by Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis, who say their strikes on commercial ships are in revenge for Israel's war against Hamas. Several countries have agreed to jointly carry out patrols in the southern Red Sea and Gulf of Aden to try and safeguard commercial shipping against attacks by the Houthis. It is not clear yet whether those countries are willing to do what US warships have done in recent days, shoot down Houthi missiles and drones and rush to the aid of commercial ships under attack. Lloyd Austin has said this is an international challenge that demands collective action. Therefore, I'm announcing the establishment of Operation Prosperity Guardian, an important new multinational security initiative. The participating countries are the United States, Bahrain, Britain, Canada, France, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, Seychelles and Spain. The Iran-backed Houthis have waded into the Israel-Hamas conflict by attacking vessels in vital shipping lanes and even firing drones and missiles at Israel more than 1,000 miles from their seat of power in the Yemeni capital of Sana'a. The Houthis have threatened to target all ships heading to Israel regardless of their nationality and warned international shipping companies against dealing with Israeli ports. The UN Security Council is due to vote later today on a new ceasefire motion, and reports say the language has been watered down to a suspension of hostilities from a cessation of hostilities to get US backing. British Foreign Minister David Cameron will call for increased coordination between allies to address the desperate humanitarian situation in Gaza during a visit to Paris and Rome today. Cameron is also expected to reiterate his call for a sustainable ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. On Monday, Hamas released a short video showing 3 elderly Israeli hostages, one of whom can be heard saying they have health issues and are suffering greatly in very harsh conditions. He pleaded for Israel to secure their unconditional release. Israel has denounced it as a criminal terrorist video that shows Hamas's cruelty against very elderly civilians and innocents who need medical care. Late last week, the Israeli forces ended up killing 3 of their own hostages, mistaking them to be Hamas operatives. The killing of the 3 escaping hostages, who, according to an initial inquiry, were waving a white flag, has prompted outrage among some Israelis and an acknowledgement by officials that the soldiers involved did not follow the designated rules of engagement. On Sunday, the Israel Defense Forces said they had uncovered the biggest Hamas tunnel in Gaza, spanning a length of 4 kilometers. The IDF said the tunnel, secured a few weeks ago but revealed to the public only on Sunday, is wide enough to drive a large vehicle through, reaches up to 50 meters underground, and is equipped with electricity, ventilation and communication systems. It does not cross into Israel but ends 400 meters before the now shut Erez crossing on the northern Israeli-Gazan border. Erez was stormed during the 7th October attacks. The tunnel was a part of Hamas's strategic infrastructure and would be destroyed, according to the IDF. In a video shared by them, the Israeli military claimed that the tunnel was created for Hamas troop movements and as a launching point for attacks. In fact, in a statement, the IDF has alleged that the tunnel system was a project of Mohammed Sinwar, the brother of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. The IDF claims to have exposed hundreds of terror tunnel shafts throughout the Gaza Strip and says it is operating to locate and destroy dozens of attack tunnel routes.
We will continue to operate in different levels of intensity according to the situation in the region, and I can tell you that soon we will be able to distinguish between different areas in Gaza. In every area where we achieve our mission, we will be able to transition gradually to the next phase and start working on bringing back local population. That means that it can be achieved maybe sooner in the north rather than in the south. So we are dealing with all the different components, and we will decide in the next future, the early future.
This is Israel's operation, and I'm not here to dictate timelines or terms. Our support to Israel's right to defend itself is ironclad, as you've heard me say a number of times, and that's not going to change. It's critical, as I said earlier, that Hamas not be able to threaten Israel from Gaza or even threaten Gaza anymore. You know, that's an interest that we all share. It's a common interest with all of us. And so today we had great discussions about the status of the campaign, about goals and objectives, and about how to reduce harm to civilians in the battle space.
All right. So what do these developments really mean, and what does the Israeli defense minister mean when he says that the next phase of the Hamas war is about to begin? To make sense of it, we are joined by I.N.D.I.A Bernstein-Reich, President of the Israel-Asia Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Harel Chore, Palestinian Affairs expert at the Moshe Dayan Center at the Tel Aviv University, and completing the panel is Lev Aaron, Israeli columnist and journalist. A warm welcome to all my guests. Welcome back to Global Lens. I.N.D.I.A Bernstein-Reich, let me begin with you. How do you see this meeting that has taken place between the US Defense Secretary and the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, where of course the US has once again emphasized that there is a need for Israel to do more to protect civilian lives, but there is now talk about the war entering the next phase. Yoav Gallant says that a lot of the Palestinians who've been displaced may actually be able to return to their homes in northern Gaza. However, no timeline has been laid down. What we are told, though, is that the US is keen that Israel change its strategy and move towards more precision surgical strikes. What more can you tell us about this? If you could just put this into perspective for our viewers.
First, good evening to you, Neha, and to your audience. The collaboration and the coordination with the US is an ongoing process. It's Austin Lloyd's visit to Israel is just one of the so many, I would say, daily discussions between US and the Israeli government, and of course the IDF, whether it's President Biden or Minister of Defense from US or many other officials from the US government. So US pushing Israel for more surgical, I wouldn't call it pushing, I wouldn't call it asking. They work hand in hand and they make joint decisions. Okay, Israel Israel needs the U.S. support, and the U.S. wants Israel to finish its work with Hamas. We have the same objective. As to the way to do it, that's the question. And I think that when they met yesterday and the day before, they agreed on the way forward. We all agreed that the work is not done. We all agreed that Hamas is still active. Actually, 2 hours back, we had sirens here. I'm in my Tel Aviv office, and Israel was attacked with tens of sirens all over, which means that Hamas still have fuel, still have ammunition, and there is still work to do, because it can't be that midday in the center of Tel Aviv and wherever in Israel, we're still under rocket attack. So Hamas is continuing their mission to destroy Israel even every day. When you're talking about a surgical operation, we all aim not to hurt civilians. From day one, Israel is saying it. We don't want to hurt civilians. We are doing the minimum we can to not to hurt civilians. And of course, this is a mission for the US and to Israel. So nothing is new, I would say. But when Gallant said that they will make an extra effort, I'm sure that he means it. And usually what they say, they also do. And again, it's a close collaboration with the US that continues. Nothing is new here.
Okay, you're saying nothing is new here, but Lev Aaron, we all know that the language being used by US officials in the last few days seems to have changed significantly. The US President, Joe Biden, no less, said Israel was fast losing support because of indiscriminate bombing of Gaza. We know what the United Nations has been saying time and again. Over the weekend, Pope Francis accused Israel's military of terrorism tactics. There is no doubt that there is growing pressure on Israel, particularly from its closest ally, the United States. What do you make of Lloyd Austin's visit to Israel, the talks that he's had with Israeli officials, and the fact that after repeatedly stating that Israel must move to surgical operations, you know, the US seems to be in a sense pushing the Israeli government in that direction, with Yoav Gallant now talking about the next phase of the war. What more do we know about this next phase of the war? No timeline has been given. There is talk about how displaced Palestinians will be able to return home. But realistically, how soon can we really see that happening?
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here. Last time that I was hosted here, you asked me, and I told you that I don't think that the Americans will impose a ceasefire on Israel, because Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis, and Putin are all in the same camp. So on one hand, I don't think that they will impose a ceasefire. They will also not impose the tactics of Israel in Gaza. I think also inside Israel, we hear a lot of voices that maybe we should change our tactics in Gaza because of the death toll, because 3 hostages were killed by our own soldiers. We have our own domestic internal reasons for changing the way that we are fighting in Gaza. I don't think it will be by a way that Americans are dictating Israel. I think that on the humanitarian front, we are in an opposite situation. I think on the humanitarian front, Americans will tell us that some things that we are doing, they cannot digest in the international arena. Thank you.
Okay. Interesting. Dr. Harel Chowre, come in here. Lev Aaron seems to think it's not so much pressure from the United States that's prompting the Israeli government to perhaps change its war strategy in Gaza. There is also domestic pressure from within. We know there's been a lot of outrage in Israel following the killing of 3 Israeli hostages. Despite the fact that they'd waved a red flag, and there is now the speculation about whether the soldiers in question had failed to follow the designated rules of fighting. You know, at the same time, Hamas has released a new video showing 3 very elderly hostages, one of whom says, "We are suffering in very harsh conditions. We have serious health problems." They are pleading with the Israeli government to secure their unconditional release. Given all the pressure that has been building up both globally and domestically, do you believe that the Israeli government is now ready to change its tactics? And if the answer is yes, what kind of a change do you really foresee? There is all this talk about precision strikes, surgical operations. What does that really mean? And can we really expect that to maybe minimize the civilian casualties, which, by the way, according to the Hamas-run health ministry, has already almost touched 20,000, the figure I mean?
Well, good evening, Nia. You've asked many questions, so if I forget anything, please feel free to ask me again. First of all, I wouldn't frame, and I think my 2 friends here said basically the same thing. I wouldn't frame the whole meeting of Secretary Lloyd with Gallant around that issue of precision and reducing the civilian casualties. I don't think that was the main issue there. And I, of course, bear in mind what President Biden said almost a week ago, which I think was too hasty, if you'll ask me. I think it had nothing to do with the way Israel worked these days. This is not the Second World War, indiscriminate bombing. You know, from so many perspectives, it's just ineffective on Israel's behalf, and I don't think this is the way Israel is working. Anyway, I think also, and I had the opportunity to mention it in the American media several times, There is a strong contradiction, Nia, between asking Israel to wrap it up or to move to the next phase, and at the same time to ask us to work cautiously. These are conflicting goals. You cannot work fast and at the same time cautiously. It just doesn't work together. And the way I see it, particularly because of Secretary Lloyd's statement yesterday that he didn't come to set any deadline for Israel. And by the way, you can strengthen this conclusion by Sullivan's statement as well. You can see that America, as for the moment, is not setting any deadline. But I heard from on Israel's behalf, when Lloyd asked about it, Israel said something between mid-January to end of January to move to the next phase. The next phase basically is to move to a more surgical operations after Israel has captured the whole terrain above, namely to start deal systematically with the tunnels, but only after the terrain above the tunnels was captured, and then you can of course afford the more surgical sort of fighting. You don't need to bomb houses and with terrorists inside, because it's really changed. The whole mission is changing. This is, by the way, something that we already see to a large extent in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, where they are already working, at least in, I think, 90% of the Gaza Strip, they are already working to, to discover tunnels, to destroy them, such as this tunnel that you showed us before, which is really striking. And as for the pressure within Israel, I don't think it's a monolithic kind of pressure. It's not that people are saying enough with this war or enough with the killing of civilians. It's basically people are asking them questions, and you get different replies. You get a reply that we should use more force in order to defend our soldiers on the one hand, particularly after several disasters that we had last week with 10 soldiers and high-rank officer who died in one incident. And on the other hand, an incident like our 3 kidnaps that unfortunately were killed by our own people, and I know it's inquired. And so you get different kinds of thoughts, but nothing really is in terms of pressure or I would say single-minded understanding or a consensus on how we should continue. At the moment, I think that if there is a consensus, is that we need to continue and destroy Hamas. I don't think there's anything that can even challenge this thought at the moment.
Okay, you say that there is a consensus. However, some might question that. We are in fact expecting the United Nations Security Council to once again vote on a ceasefire motion, and reports suggest that the language has been watered down to get US backing. US was not willing to support this motion because it talked about cessation of hostilities. Now this may be changed to suspension of hostilities, and we'll see what happens finally to this motion. At the same time, British Foreign Minister David Cameron, let me mention this for the benefit of our viewers, is going to be in Paris and Rome today, where not only is he going to talk about the desperately needed humanitarian aid in Gaza, but also he's expected to reiterate his demand for, or his call for, a sustainable ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. So let me go back to Anat Bernstein-Reich. Anat, we've talked about the things that President Biden has said in the very recent past, the fact that almost every US official who's visited Israel in recent days, from Antony Blinken to Jake Sullivan to Lloyd Austin, while extending support to Israel on the one hand, on the other has also repeatedly pointed out that Israel needs to do more to minimize casualties. What do you make of the growing international chorus for a ceasefire? Of course, it doesn't look like Israel is moved very significantly by that. And also tell us a little bit about the mood at home. Would it be correct to say that there is a lot of anger, not only because of the killing of the 3 Israeli hostages by the Israeli forces late last week, but also because of the new videos that are coming out showing the hostages in really bad conditions, and the fact that you still have a lot of people there who are still trapped in Gaza, waiting desperately to return home and to be reunited with their loved ones, which also complicates this military campaign for Israel in many ways.
So let me first reply to you about, you were asking whether there is anger. So I wouldn't say that there is anger. There is big sorrow for the incident. Those incidents happen. I mean, one unit shoots other unit. This is part of a war, and unfortunately, it happens. And this misfortunate event with the 3 hostages was a big shock to all of us. What it created, it's not anger. It's a big cry to the government to work on a new arrangements with Hamas to release the balance hostages. We have 129 hostages still kept with Hamas, including the 2 redhead babies and 10 women, which we are suspecting that they are treated the way Hamas is treating women, young women. So there is a big pressure on the government to talk to their allies, let it be Qatar, Egypt, and US, to come up with a new pact with or trust with Hamas, which will include, of course, a ceasefire, because that's how it works. But in the streets in Israel, we are very clear of the way forward. I mean, we had such a big shock in October 7th that we understand that there is no other solution. Hamas doesn't want to stop the war because they're winning. It's because they're losing, so they're crying for a ceasefire. So if you'll ask everyone here, or let's say not everyone, but most of the people are in favor of this war, in favor of eliminating Hamas. But on the other end, we say, okay, we can eliminate Hamas in a month's time. Let's now focus on the hostage. Let's focus on the people. And those 3 old men, they are over 70 and one even over 80. The Red Cross, which I over and over mentioned, that they don't do their job. They're not providing anything to the hostage. They didn't even go to see them. They went to see the Palestinian hospitals, but they didn't push enough the Hamas to really meet the hostages. So this is the problem. And the hostages that came back, and several came back in very bad condition, make us push the government, pressure the government to come to some understanding. So this is the mood in Israel. We are very resilient. I mean, now I invite you to come to Israel to meet the people here. People are serving in the army now almost more than 70 days.
Yes.
And they want to continue. The spirit is there. We understand that this is a survival mode. And we have no other choice but to finish Hamas and try to bring peace to this region.
All right. Trying to finish Hamas and to bring peace to the region. Of course, the safety and welfare of the hostages continues to be a big concern for Israel. I need to take a quick break here on the show, but don't go anywhere. On the other side, we will continue this discussion with our guests from Israel.
हमारी नारी शक्ति को सशक्त करने से ही देश सशक्त होने वाला है।
हर महीने महिलाओं को 1500 रुपए प्रति माह दिलवाया जाएगा।
What Nitish Kumar did to provide cycle to girls, so they could safely, quickly move out of the house, go to school, and quickly come back. Ching, 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 ching.
माँ अन्नपूर्णा तू ही, माँ अन्नपूर्णा है तू ही बीणा वादनी, हे शक्ति स्वरूपा जगदम्बा, हे नारी तू नारायणी.
News is now content. Just stream it. Download the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. This and more. Streaming on the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Jyotiraditya Scindia is also facing a litmus test.
There have been corruption charges against all the chief ministers or towering leaders who were rich, but this is not the case with Scindia. So the point is that in modern times, when the society is looking up to good leaders, so Jyotiraditya Scindia could be one of them.
As far as Jyotiraditya Scindia is concerned, even if the BJP loses, Jyotiraditya Scindia will be around for at least another 2 decades. He is young and he has the ability to come back.
This and more streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And you're watching me on First Person on News9 Plus.
This and more streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, the US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, diamonds being a dream product, something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining and of course, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back. We're talking about the Israel-Hamas war, which Israel says is poised to enter the next phase. All right, my next question is for both Dr. Harel Chori and Lev Aaron. Starting with Lev Aaron. Lev, Reuters, the news agency, has just put out a story saying Israeli President Isaac Herzog has indicated readiness on part of the country to enter another foreign-mediated Gaza truce in order to recover hostages held by Hamas. President Isaac Herzog told a gathering of ambassadors, as per Reuters, and I'm quoting him here, Israel is ready for another humanitarian pause and additional humanitarian aid in order to enable the release of hostages. What should we make of the Israeli president's statement? Is he speaking for the Israeli government?
I'm sure that our president could not say anything without the consent of the cabinet ministers, including Netanyahu, the prime minister. So I'm sure that everything that Herzog is saying, he's just, he knows what he's saying, and he's saying it in a way in the name of all of us. If there is one impact of the terrible incident in which 3 of our soldiers were killed by 3 of our hostages were killed by our own soldiers, is that we had the concept that the way that we are fighting Hamas is also the way to release the hostages. I think at least in this question, more Israelis have questions if the two of them are really going well together. So in a way, on one hand, I think that Hamas is losing the war. So maybe Hamas is ready to give us things that maybe a fortnight ago Hamas was not ready to give. And on the other hand, also our government, they can hear the voices in Israel that tells them, look, via a military operation, we are not sure that we can bring all the hostages back home.
Okay, so let me put this question to Dr. Chore. Dr. Chore, what should be made of what your president is saying? This is a significant statement. It's not come from the Prime Minister. It's not come from the Defense Minister. It's come from the Israeli president. What do you make of it?
Well, I think it actually embodies both things. I mean, the president is fully aware of the fact that everybody are determined to eradicate Hamas and at the same time to take care of our hostages. We need to understand, you've mentioned the horrific video from yesterday where we saw those elderly hostages, you know, people at the age of 85, didn't take a shower for 2 months. It's quite clearly from what we see there, sick, and you know what, even bearded in a way that is, anyone who is specialist on the Middle East will tell you immediately. These beards are not there just because they didn't shave. These beards are typical Islamic Salafia kind of beard, namely without the mustache. Namely, they were put as if they were Muslims by another message of control of Hamas, and they looked really, really poor. And I don't think there is a single Israeli who is not really terrified about their fate. So I think anything that can be achieved within this void between a ceasefire, a reasonable ceasefire, and a limited one, which is very important, not a sustainable one. A sustainable only after Hamas will be destroyed. But anything that comes between a reasonable ceasefire, including humanitarian aid, which you, by the way, mentioned before. We need to understand the problem with the humanitarian aid. It's the supply. They're getting hundreds of trucks probably every day. The thing is that Hamas robbed them on a daily basis, robbed it for its own people. You can see the footage, and the poor population was left behind. And this is why you see so many frustration by the population against Hamas, something that you wouldn't see, Nia, before October 7th. And so I think the president is trying to reflect this understanding in Israel that we are willing to pay the price of a limited ceasefire, including other things, including a painful release of prisoners, of Palestinian terrorists, with blood on their hands, by the way, at this stage, and in order to get our people back, because it's really unbearable. What they're doing to those hostages is beyond any imagination. How someone can treat a human being in the way they're treated. Lev and Anat mentioned those two redhead babies that are still in captive. How can you hold an 11 years old baby and to use it as a card within your play with Israel. It's just unbearable. So I think we're working within this void. I don't see it clearly. I don't see it ending with a result that would be a sustainable ceasefire. Because a sustainable ceasefire, as I already told you a few weeks ago, is a victory for Hamas. This is exactly the achievement they're trying to reach at this moment. They want to stop the war in order to establish their achievement from October 7th.
Okay, so you don't see a sustainable ceasefire taking place, but there may well be another temporary truce. Anat, this is very, very significant. First, 3 Israeli hostages are killed mistakenly by the Israel Defense Forces. Next, you have a video of 3 elderly hostages being released by Hamas. You can see those gentlemen in a very pitiable condition. They're pleading with the Israelis to have them released. And now the Israeli president issues this statement saying Israel is ready for another humanitarian pause and additional humanitarian aid in order to enable the release of hostages. And the responsibility, he says, lies fully with Yahya Sinwar and the other Hamas leadership. However, let me tell you what Hamas has said. Hamas has already said, we affirm our position of categorically rejecting to hold any form of negotiations over prisoners exchange under the continuing Israeli genocidal war. So Hamas seems to be saying, you want your hostages back, you want to negotiate with us, stop the bombing first. Your thoughts, do you see this temporary truce taking place at all?
Yes. Yes, so Hamas said it. So what? They said so many things. I mean, they are murderers, they are liars. They know how to negotiate, and that's them. But they will need the ceasefire. They need the support of Qatar and Egypt. They are not in void totally. Okay, let's remember that Hamas leaders, many of them, are in Qatar at the moment. They are hosted by Qatar. Qatar has means to influence Hamas, and they will do it, and they have interest to do it as well. So Hamas said that they will not. I believe that they really need this ceasefire. They want to release the Hamas terrorists that are kept in Israel. So eventually it will happen. As to the video that we saw of those 3 elderly, this is not the first time, okay? I'll remind you that we had Maya Shem was released a video when she was captive, and then Yarden Bibas, the father of the 2 redheads, released a video. It's not him. The Hamas released his video crying for help, and another 3 ladies. So this is systematic work of Hamas to release video to create pressure. It's psychological terror, as we call it. It's not new. And our heart, of course, goes to those elderly, which they need their medicine and they are in bad shape. And 85 years lady that was released from captivity was rushed to the hospital in a very severe condition because she didn't get her medicine. So we understand it, but again, this is Hamas tactic to put pressure. There is pressure on the government, and I hope that this truce will come up soon, as President Herzog said a while back.
Okay, Lev, I'll give you the last word. As Anat says, of course, there is psychological terror or warfare at play here. But if this second temporary truce were to in fact materialize, what conditions do you think Israel is likely to lay down before Hamas? And what do you think Hamas's demand would be before they agree to a second truce?
Okay, Hamas wants the war to stop, at least for like few days, to regroup, to understand their situation. Israel wants mainly the elderly, the babies, the women. So I think that if Israel gets, let's say, the weakened part, the weakened link of the hostages among Hamas, Israel will be more generous to Hamas. And on the other hand, when Hamas is trying this, let's say this terror against us via these videos, it is also glues some kind of consensus among Israelis that Hamas has to be defeated. So in a way, it is also an own goal. It is not only a success for Hamas to show 3 elderly people in such a condition.
All right, certainly psychological warfare at play. Well, I think it will be a big relief for everyone, frankly, if this second truce does materialize. After all, the stakes are very high for Israel as well, given that almost 130 hostages are still in Hamas captivity. All right, on that note, Anat Bernstein-Reich, Dr. Harel Chori and Lev Aaron, thank you very much for joining me on Global Lens and sharing your time and perspective with us.
Thank you, Neha.
Well, let's now shift our focus from the Israel-Hamas war to the elections in Egypt. Egypt's president, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, has won a third 6-year term with almost 90% of the vote. The former army chief beat 3 low-profile candidates, with the runner-up securing just about 4.5% of the vote. Leading opposition candidate Ahmed Tantawi had pulled out months before last week's poll, claiming intimidation and violence against his campaign. Egypt's faltering economy and the war in Gaza were key electoral issues. The victory in the latest election means al-Sisi will be in power until 2030.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has won a third term in an election where he faced no serious challenges and garnered nearly 90% of votes. According to election authorities on Monday, Sisi called the result a rejection of the inhumane war